Hello friends, this is Sanjay. In this video, we will try to answer the question, which cases are important for the upcoming CLAT PG 2024 examination. Now this is not a very simple or a straightforward or a easy question to answer because you have to understand a few things about the CLAT PG examination before we get around to answering this question. And I have been doing this video series from the year 2021 because in 2020, when the new pattern was introduced, we just had the sample question paper to understand what we could expect in that year's question paper. But in 21, 22 and 23, we had the benefit of having the previous year's question papers which we could analyze and try to answer this very important question. So please be patient and watch this video till the end. Let us start with a question paper format, and there are no surprises here. In fact, nothing has changed from the year 2020 because the exam continues to be for 120 marks. That is, there will be 120 questions, each of which will carry 1 mark for every correct answer. And the total time allocated for this exam continues to be 2 hours. And there will be a negative marking of 0.25 marks, that is 1/4 of a mark will be deducted for every wrong answer. There will be no deduction of marks for any unanswered questions. As far as the syllabus that is mentioned here, these are the subjects that are covered in your standard LLB syllabus. The CLAT PG continues to be a comprehension type exam. So let's try to understand what is the number of passages that we can expect. Well, there can be either 12 passages or 20 passages. If there are 12 passages, then each passage will have 10 MCQs based on it, which adds up to 120 MCQs for the complete question paper. If there are 20 passages, then each passage will have 6 MCQs, which again adds up to a total of 120 MCQs for the complete paper. In 2023, that is the most recent exam, there were 12 passages, whereas in 22 and 21, there were 20 passages. And in the first year, when this new pattern was introduced, there were 12 passages. So the number of passages actually does not affect the complexity of the question paper, because in 2022 and 2021, when there were more number of passages, you can see that the average length of the passage was less. Whereas if the number of passages are reduced, then the average length of the passage will be increased. So irrespective of the number of passages, the overall number of MCQs remains the same and the overall complexity of the question paper will remain the same. Moving on to the syllabus and the details, again nothing has changed, everything remains the same as it was from the year 2020. In fact, every year what they have been doing is they just change the year and they republish the same details. In fact, in 2020, when the new pattern was introduced, they planned to have 2 sections. There was the objective section and there were some details here about a subjective section as well. But closer to the exam, they decided to drop the subjective section, and the CLAT PG was converted into a completely objective type examination. But they have forgotten to edit some of the details here. So this details will still talk about the first section will include 120 objective type questions, and there is a separate mention of an objective section here. But please don't get confused. The CLAT PG just has the objective section. There is only the first section. There is no second section in this examination. Moving on to the important dates. At this point, there are just 3 dates which are mentioned. The applications open from the 1st of July, and there is a last date for receiving the applications, which is 3rd of November. And the tentative date of the examination is also mentioned here. Now I'm saying this is the tentative date of the examination because the actual date might change depending on the circumstances at that point in time. And looking at the previous year's calendar, there will be some other dates which might be announced going forward. If you are registered and if you have paid the fees for the examination, then you'll be able to access some sample question papers as and when they are released. And there are also some dates when you can actually go and visit the campuses of the NLUs. So you should make sure that you visit the official website on a regular basis so that you don't miss out on any of these important notifications. One frequently asked question is how much should I score in the CLAT PG examination to be able to get a seat in one of the top NLUs? Well, this is a very tricky question to answer because there are 2 factors. One is what should be your rank and what is your score, because your score will again influence your rank. Now, before answering this question, we have to consider that there are several variables at play here which can affect both your score and your rank. For example, what is the total number of candidates who are attempting this examination? In 2020, just around 6,000 candidates sat for the CLAT PG. By the 2023 edition of the examination, the number had gone up to 10,000. So which means that the same score which would have fetched a higher rank in 2020 will fetch a much lower rank in 2023. As the number of candidates increases, you are also competing with more number of better prepared candidates. And how many of these candidates are actually interested in a NLU LLM? Because up to 20% of the candidates who sit for the CLAT PG do so just to apply for the PSU recruitments. So these are candidates who are not competing with you for a seat in a NLU. And the overall difficulty level of the paper will also affect the scores. Preparation level of the candidates is also a very important factor. For example, in 2020, when the new pattern was introduced, then students did not have a good idea as to what they could expect in that year's question paper. And there were not many resources that were available for preparation as well. And this is probably reflected in the lower scores of that year. Whereas every subsequent year has seen an increase in the overall scores, because students now have more number of previous papers that they can use for practice. There are more number of mock tests that are available in the market. Students also have more time to prepare for this new pattern. So the preparation level is definitely a factor that will affect both the scores and the ranks as well. And then there is the reservations, the domicile quotas, which will affect the number of seats available in each category. And this will affect the probability of getting into one of the NLUs. And the last one, the overall number of available seats. This has been a positive factor because in general, NLUs seem to be increasing the number of seats available across the board. Now, coming back to the question, how much should I score? While this question does not have a straightforward answer, this question can still be answered in a particular way. So, to answer the question, we should actually ignore the scores, because while the scores may change year on year, the ranks will remain constant. So, if you look at what was the cutoff rank for a specific category from some of the most recent years, we should be able to predict at what point will you be able to get into one of the top NLUs. So let's focus on the general merit category from the most recent years. Now let's ignore 2020 because this was the year of the lockdown, and you can see that there are quite a few outliers when it comes to the ranks and the scores as well. So let's focus on the three most recent years, that is 23, 22 and 21. And looking at the top 4 NLUs and what was the cutoff rank at which a general merit category candidate managed to get a seat in one of these NLUs, we can comfortably predict that if you score somewhere in the range of AIR 500 or above, you'll be able to get a seat in one of the top 4 NLUs. Next, let us move on towards answering the question that is the topic of this video, that is, which are the cases that are important for CLAT PG 2024. To answer this question, let's take a look at where did the passages come from in the most recent previous question papers. So let's start with CLAT PG 2023. Now, even though we keep calling this CLAT PG 2023, the exam was actually conducted in December of 22. So the year of the exam was actually 22. And the immediate preceding year, or y-1, would be 21. Now, if we look at this question paper, we can see that 9 out of the 12 passages were based on cases. And just 2 of these cases were from the year of this exam. There were no passages based on cases from the immediate preceding year, that is 2021. The remaining cases were from various different previous years. Moving on to CLAT PG 2022, this exam was actually conducted in June of 22. And looking at the passages, 12 out of the 20 passages were based on cases, and of which only 1 was from the year of the examination. And there were 8 from the immediate preceding year, that is 2021. And the remaining cases were from different previous years. If we look at CLAT PG 2021, we can see that 18 out of the 20 passages were based on cases, of which 6 were from the year of the examination and 4 from the immediate preceding year, and the rest of them were distributed across various previous years. And looking at 2020, when the new pattern was introduced, 50% of the passages were based on cases, of which 3 were from the year of the examination and 1 from the immediate preceding year, and the rest were from different previous years. Therefore, looking at the recent previous question papers, we can agree that the selection of the cases from which the passages will be sourced is quite random. We can also agree that nobody outside the CLAT NLU consortium will be able to predict how many of these passages will be based on cases from the year of the examination or the immediate preceding year. And even if we go with the assumption that 50% of the passages will be based on cases from y or y-1, we still don't know which specific cases will be used for creating these passages, because in any given year there can be up to 50 landmark cases that are decided by the Supreme Court or by some of the high courts. So if we consider y and y-1, we have to deal with around 100 different cases. So even if we go with the assumption that these passages will be based on these 100 different landmark cases, we still don't know which part of the judgment will be used for creating the passages, because the judgment text might run into 60, 70, 80 pages. So which part of it will be used for creating the passage? Therefore, there are a lot of random variables that we'll have to deal with here. If everything is so random and unpredictable, how can we prepare for this exam? Well, thankfully, there are quite a few things which can be predicted, and these are things which are very important in your preparation. By looking at the previous question papers and by analyzing the sample papers or the model papers that have been previously released by the CLAT consortium, we can predict that up to 60% of the questions will be direct. That is, these are questions where the answer is within the passage that has been given in the question paper, or sometimes the answer may be within the answer options themselves. And then 25 to 30% of the questions will be external or contextual. So these are questions which are based on the topic, but the answer is not within the passage. So these are questions which can be answered through some level of general awareness or general legal awareness. And around 20% of the questions will be contextual. So these are questions which are based on the case or from the source from where the passage has been taken. But unfortunately, the answer will not be within the passage. So which means that a thorough familiarity with that particular case or source is required to answer such questions. To summarize, the CLAT PG 2024 examination will have direct questions where you have full control. So here you'll need extensive practice, adequate practice, because you will have to learn how to read these comprehension passages and derive the answer from within the passages. And then you will have contextual or external questions where you have no control, because you might know the answer or you might not know the answer. If you don't know the answer, you have to have an effective strategy to deal with such questions. If your target is to get into one of the top 4 NLUs, then as we discussed previously, your ranking in the CLAT PG examination has to be less than AIR 500. Now, All India rank 1 is at around 80%, whereas AIR 500 is somewhere between 55 to 60%, which means that if your scores are between 60 to 80%, then there is a very high probability of getting a seat in one of the top NLUs. While 80% is evidently doable with the right kind of dedication and practice, even with a normal amount of practice and a good set of mock tests, you should be able to comfortably target the 70 to 75% level. So if you score between 70 to 75% in the CLAT PG examination, then a seat in one of the top 4 NLUs is more or less guaranteed. So now how do we reach this 70 to 75% level? Now this is where you have to maximize your scores first in the direct questions, because 60% of them will be direct questions. And you also have to have an effective strategy for dealing with these external or contextual questions, which will account for up to 30% of the examination. Therefore, by maximizing your scores in the direct questions and practicing an effective strategy for the external and contextual questions, you should be able to comfortably reach the 70 to 75% level. Talking a little bit more about the preparation strategy for the direct questions, it is all about practice, 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 and more practice. Get as many comprehension passages and mock tests as possible and practice them as many times as you can. And just because somebody can read a 500-page novel in 3 or 4 hours doesn't mean that the person is ready to deal with this pattern of the examination, because when it comes to comprehension passages, you're not just trying to read the text. You're trying to understand the text, understand the context, and extract the answer that is somewhere within the text. Therefore, you need to get comprehension practice, not just reading practice. And attempt as many relevant mock tests as possible under timed conditions. That is, whether you are practicing with a full mock test or you are practicing with the timed passages, you have to make sure that there is a timer that is always going on in the background. Right? Because when it comes to the CLAT PG examination, time management is very, very critical. If you give enough time, a number of students will do exceptionally well in this examination. But the CLAT PG is like a marathon. You have to know when to speed up and when to slow down, because you have to maintain your focus and attention for almost 2 hours. And within these 2 hours, you have to solve 120 questions, which means that on an average, you have 1 minute per question to read the passage, read the question, understand the passage, identify the answer, and mark it in the booklet. Therefore, you will be under a lot of pressure in the CLAT PG examination. So make sure that you practice dealing with that pressure. Let me take a minute to talk about the Lawment CLAT PG mock test series. We have included a total of 284 comprehension passages in the series, and there are a total of 2180 questions based on these 284 passages. Now, 120 of these passages have been combined to form 10 full-length mock tests. And you also have the 2020, 21, 22 and 23 previous question papers set up as mock tests. So you can practice with 14 full-length mock tests. And we realized that people will not be able to spare 2 hours at a stretch to practice these mock tests. Therefore, 100 of the passages have been kept as standalone mini mock tests. Whenever you have 10 or 15 minutes to spare, just log in and practice one passage. And there is no limit. You can log in and practice as many times as possible. And all our mock tests are accessible through any device. You just need a browser and a normal internet connection. So it might be a smartphone, it might be a desktop or laptop or tablet. Just log in from any device whenever you can, from wherever you can, and practice as many times as possible. And we have also included all the previous question papers from 2009 till 2019. These are the old pattern CLAT PG question papers. These are not only useful if you are preparing for the non-CLAT LLM entrance exams, these are also useful in preparing for the general questions or the external questions that you will find in the CLAT PG examination. Moving on to the preparation strategy for the general questions, attempt all the old pattern CLAT PG previous question papers. That is the CLAT PG question papers from 2009 all the way till 2019. Now these old pattern question papers are not only useful if you are preparing for non-CLAT LLM entrance exams, they are also very, very useful for answering some of the generic or the general or the external questions that you will find in the CLAT PG examination. And you should also be familiar with all the important landmark cases from the year of the exam and the immediate preceding year as well. And you also have to get a good amount of elimination strategy practice. Now, what is this elimination strategy practice? Well, think about it this way. If you have to randomly choose one option from among the 4 options, then the probability of your selecting a correct answer is around 25%. But if you are able to eliminate one option, then you have to select from the remaining 3, which means that the probability of selecting the correct answer will go up to 33%. If you are able to eliminate the second option as well, then you have to just choose from between the 2 remaining options, which means that your probability is at around 50%. Therefore, by eliminating as many options as possible, you are increasing the probability of selecting the right answer. So this is the elimination strategy. Let me give you a small example of how the elimination strategy works. Look at this question. The Supreme Court decided upon the issue of permanent commission for women in the armed forces in which of the following cases? When I look at the options that are given, I know that the DK Basu case deals with custodial violence and arrest. Therefore, this cannot be the correct answer. Now, I have to select between the remaining 3, which means that my probability has already gone up from 25% to 33%. Now, I also know that the Indra Sahni case deals with the reservations, and this is also the Mandal verdict case. Therefore, this cannot be the correct answer. Now, the probability of selecting a correct answer from the remaining options has gone up to 50%. And then I know that the Puttaswamy case is related to Aadhaar. Therefore, this cannot be the correct answer. Therefore, by eliminating the options that are definitely not the correct answer, I am increasing the probability of selecting the correct answer. And by eliminating all these options, even if I was not sure that Babita Punya is the correct answer, I have arrived at the correct answer by a process of elimination. So that is the elimination strategy that you should practice. Now, if you practice all the old pattern CLAT PG question papers that we have included in the mock test series, you'll see that there are questions based on the DK Basu case, on the Indira Sani case, on the Puttaswamy case. Therefore, by practicing the old pattern question papers, you'll be able to deal with a number of external and general questions that are asked in the CLAT PG examination. Another important aspect of the CLAT PG examination is about dealing with the negative marking. As you are aware, 1/4 of a mark, that is 0.25 marks, will be deducted for every incorrect answer. But there is no deduction of marks for any unanswered questions. So when you come across questions which you don't know the answers to, or you cannot answer them within a reasonable amount of time, so should you just ignore those questions and move on, or should you just take a random guess and answer those questions? Well, look at it this way. As we discussed previously, even if you take a random guess from among the 4 answer options given to every question, then the probability of selecting a correct answer is at 25%, which means that if you randomly guess the answer for 4 questions, then the probability will still remain at 25%, which means that out of the 4 questions where you have just randomly guessed the answer, at least 1 question is likely to be correct, and you will lose marks in the remaining 3 questions. But net, you will still gain 0.25 marks. And given the competitive nature of this examination, this 0.25 marks can significantly affect your rank. Therefore, I would strongly suggest that you should answer all the questions in the CLAT PG examination, even if you have to take a random guess. But try to use the elimination strategy to increase the probability of selecting the right answer. So as we discussed, every time you eliminate one of the options, the probability of selecting the correct option goes up. As a part of the CLAT PG examination, your general legal awareness will also be tested, which means that you have to be aware of what is happening in the legal world in India. You also have to have a good overview of the important cases that are being dealt with by the different courts across India. To do this, I would recommend a channel on YouTube called Live Law. Let me put a disclaimer that we have nothing to do with this channel, we have no affiliation with them. On this channel, I would recommend that you should watch the videos that are regularly published in 2 specific playlists. One is Courts Today and the other is Courts This Week. By following the videos in these 2 playlists, you will keep yourself abreast of what is happening across the different courts in India. And you should be aware of all the landmark cases from the year of the examination, that is 2023, and the immediate preceding year, that is 2022. So make sure that you are familiar with all the landmark judgments that come out at least 2 months before the date of the examination. And specifically look at all the cases which are dealing with any national level issues or cases where there is any constitutional interpretation is happening, and cases which affect a wider set of citizens, and cases which have been in the news for whatever reason. So by focusing on these different types of cases, you can make sure that you are covering all the important cases for the upcoming CLAT PG 2024 examination. And please do check out lawment.com, where you can register and access the free full-length mock tests for CLAT PG, other popular LLM entrance examinations, All India Bar Exam, UGC NET Law, and other exams as well. If you have any questions or feedback, you can post them in the comments below, or you can reach out to us at hello@lawment.com. So I will see you again in the next video. Till then, take care, stay safe.